Hey everybody, I'm Elena Yee. I'm here at GDC 2015 with Mitch Dyer.
That's me.
Who just had some hands-on time with the Steam VR headset.
It was like full body on, basically.
Like it was a pretty, I mean, obviously what we saw, or what you played, was a developer kit. So
Yes.
you were pretty rigged out with wires and like a headset and 2 controllers.
I had to have somebody like help me equip it all.
Crazy belt.
Yep.
But what was it like? Like, what did you actually see in that room? Because they didn't have a display or anything.
So
like
the room itself is just this big white empty room, but the demos I played were basically, I put the VR headset on, headphones, and I had these 2 controllers. Imagine similar to Wii remotes, but with very specific sensors on them. They have grips on the sides, they have triggers on the back, and then wheels on the, or like radial touchpads on the front.
Yeah, and that's really similar to a Steam controller, right? Like that kind of like touchpad.
Yep. And depending on the demo I played, the usage of all of those changed. The coolest stuff that I played, like the coolest game stuff, was, you know, I had this demo like Job Simulator 2025 where I'm cooking food for this robot, and I need tomatoes and mushrooms and hot sauce, and put that in a pot, I'm gonna make a soup. And I had to navigate this entire space wearing this VR headset, look around the kitchen for tomatoes, where's the knife, do I need to cut anything, where's the pot, oh it's over here, I'll dump all the food in, that kind of stuff. It's also like a cool physics simulator where I could just throw things across in a room, and there's like a really awesome sense of place with that headset. I loved that. That was the big thing for me, was I was standing in this empty room, and as soon as I put the headset on, like, I really did feel like I was in a different place.
So, like, one thing I noticed just from kind of like observing you, like the peeping Tom that I am through the window.
I'm sure I looked awesome.
Is that you were kind of really roaming that space. It wasn't a huge room, but like you were actually covering like every inch of it.
Yeah, I mean, every demo had a very clear, like, this is the area in which you are allowed to navigate. There was one, it's called like the gallery, and I think I was standing in an elevator, and there was this giant rock monster in the distance talking about things, but the whole time I could like pick up a starfish that was on the wall, or I could crank something to open a door, and I could like hold it open with one hand and grab items with the other and place them using the grips and the triggers and things like that. And then using the, you know, the VR space, I had to like turn papers over to read things, I had to look at a compass to get my sense of direction. All of that stuff like really, really worked for me. And I was roaming because I got to see so much stuff. Like, these demos are really cool. They're just dense with things worth seeing. So,
is it similar to Oculus? Is it very different? Like, how would you categorize the 2 different things? I know you have experience with both.
Yeah, my experience with Oculus has primarily been like playing Half-Life or playing other games, like games that already exist that happen to have a VR component. And that's really cool. I love, you know, walking around City 17 in Half-Life and looking around and having that bigger sense of like being there. But it's very different from the Valve VR demo, which has me standing in a room, holding 2 controllers in my hands, actually walking around a place that is rendered in 3D. They're very, very different experiences, and for me, I don't know the practicality of the Valve controllers roam around your living room demos, but it's really cool, and I hope that there are more actual games that pursue that kind of interactivity.
Speaking of which, you said the first thing out of your mouth really after that, you know, you finished this demo was something about Portal.
Yeah, I saw a new Aperture Science demo. It was very simple. I was in a room in Aperture Science, and a robot was chirping jokes at me, and I was able to open drawers and look inside and see like a bunch of Portal jokes. It was just a very irreverent Portal thing. You know, I would open a door, and the big round robot from Portal 2 came roaming in, and I felt the need to like hold the door open for him, but to also move, like physically move out of his way as he shambled in, and I had to rebuild him and pull his face off and look at all these different parts. GLaDOS came in at the end, like the room totally falls apart, and this gigantic version of GLaDOS comes down, and it is very different than being in first person in Portal and seeing this giant robot hanging from the ceiling, than being like feeling literally like you're inches away from her.
So like right in your face.
Yes, it was really cool. I hope that Valve does way more things with the kind of Aperture Science Half-Life demos like that, and hopefully makes more games with it using VR. That'd be awesome.
So do you think there's a lot of potential for this then?
Yeah, I don't know the practicality of a full game where I have to stand in a square, but there's really interesting stuff that I saw, you know, like standing underwater and looking at a giant whale swim by, and like it's right up in my face. It's the kind of experiential stuff that's really interesting, you know, like the Game of Thrones wall demo where you like ride the elevator up the wall. I think there's cool opportunities there. I think that the cooking game I played that I mentioned is really cool. Like it's fun and silly, but there's also like game elements there. I have objectives, and there are jokes to kind of keep me going, stuff like that. I would love to play more games using this kind of VR.
Well, it's supposed to be coming out later this year. This is the HTC headset that, you know, they're working on in partnership with Valve. So we'll definitely see more of it, I assume, before the end of the year.
Yes, of course.
But for now, for all things VR, Steam Machines, and even Steam Controller, you're right in the right place, right here at IGN.